Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for the series premiere of Ahsoka episodes 1 and 2, titled Part 1 and Part 2. Already off the top, the samurai aesthetic, absolutely amazing. This is a 420 review. Typically I would have my baked sushi display, but due to the absolute immaculate samurai aesthetic throughout both these episodes, I assume it's going to be, throughout the entire series, I busted out the Ghost of Tsushima. So we got Jin Sakai up there because this whole thing was very samurai-esque. Of course, Samurai Vader, naturally. I didn't even think of that. I'm too high to have even thought of that, but I'm glad I picked this shirt now because that would have matched. So thank goodness I picked this one out, but I loved it. I'm super biased, and I know I have to say this off the top because there are a lot of people that don't watch, for one, that don't watch the animated stuff in general. So there are a boatload of people who haven't seen Clone Wars or Rebels, but even people that watch the animated stuff, it always goes, no animation, just Clone Wars, and that's pretty much it. So loving Rebels as much as I do is like, it feels like a niche within a niche, just within loving Star Wars. So this was definitely one of those things where it was like, just watching it, especially while high, admittedly, it was like, holy crap, this is amazing. Like, people will know who Hera Syndulla is. I mean, obviously it focused on Ahsoka, so they'll mostly know Ahsoka and Sabine Wren, which I'm totally fine with because I like Sabine. Like, she's the Mandalorian. Mandalorians have always been like my favorite thing. So Dave Filoni just been really helping me out. I've been there since the beginning, so I understand, like, this is like specifically his baby. Obviously he did Clone Wars and Rebels and stuff, but Ahsoka is like his character. And then it was like, oh, it didn't hit me until I actually watched it. I tried to avoid a lot of the trailers and stuff. But it was just like, holy crap, seeing, we already saw Ahsoka, and that in itself was like super cool. And it was like, they referenced Thrawn, so it's like Thrawn, Ezra, Rebels and everything. But then actually getting here is like, wow, this really is a live action Rebels sequel series. And it was just crazy. It was like, that's a live action Hera Syndulla. That's a live action Sabine Wren. We already got a cool reference with Zeb in The Mandalorian, so it'll be exciting to see him come back. We got a live action Chopper. So all of that was just like, wow, this is good. Loth Cats, obviously, like that's just the thing. Like, anybody who knows Rebels is like, it's like that in the fruit, which I can't think of the name of, but that was like the one thing that wasn't just like thrown right in, like Rebel stuff. But I absolutely loved it. I was like, this is just super cool. I actually took notes because there was so much stuff. First off, man, the longer episode, it really works, especially as an opening. So good. I wish we could just get that because they tell so much story, and I think the first episode is only 45 minutes, and so that's probably maybe like 38 minutes or something like that, counting credits, which the credits are absolutely amazing. It's kind of weird to see them at the end because they seem so like serious and like thematic and everything, but at the same time it does seem super long. It was a lot like when Secret Invasion came out, I feel like the credits were a little too long, so I almost feel like it fits better to have them at the end because they do feel like long, good end credits and just have like a short opening. I actually like it that way, so I'm happy with them being at the end. But love the credits, love the visuals for the credits, all that stuff. The music has been really good. But just starting with the notes, first off, he did the red logo. It was like the end of Clone Wars transitioning right into this, and it was just the like outline red lettering Star Wars. And not only that, but we actually got a crawl. It wasn't at an angle, it was just straight up and down, but we got a crawl, and it was like, hey, here's some information, here's some characters, and here's where we are right now, like the opening to an actual Star Wars movie. And that was absolutely beautiful. And there are a buttload of scenes where it's like, wow, this feels like Star Wars. They're in the ship, it's it's colorful and things are happening. They do a straight up 100% Phantom Menace shot, which I was like, he's just doing everything in this episode. So I was super happy about that. They had like much smaller version of the droid, but I was like, they did like the Phantom Menace shot, like it was just so good. And there were so many things, and there's some stuff that I'd heard about, which obviously this is a full review, so obviously spoilers, but man, the stuff that they did as it pertains to going with Night Sisters and stuff like that, I'd seen that, but I was like, maybe that's just a rumor. I didn't want to know. I didn't want to see theories, which people called it back in the day. It was like, oh, that green flame. And it's like, you watch Clone Wars, especially, you watch Rebels, you see a lot of that green flame. And if you've been playing the last two amazing Star Wars games, Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor, is like, Mirren is all over that. It's like, the green flame is Night Sisters. That's like the thing now. So that was super cool. I was like, she's officially a Night Sister. They do the green flame. I was super happy about that. There was a lot of stuff where I swear to God, during that sequence, first off, and this is like at the end of my notes because I just wrote whatever, it seemed like they definitely talked about the world between worlds, which a lot of people were theorizing in general from like the big map sequence, but she specifically was like, oh, I hear him call out to me through space and time, and I was like, that's very interesting. And obviously that's more of a Rebels thing, because like obviously if you didn't watch Rebels, it's just like, oh, space and time, like she can just feel, you know, through the Force, or, you know, through her magic really. But because I know Rebels, it was like, well, it could just be like her magic stuff, but then to put that line in there specifically, like through space and time, I was like, another world between worlds sort of situation. And that's definitely what the ball looked like. I was like, it has like the spirals and stuff like that, and I was like, that's what that looks like. So this is, they don't say it, but I'm like, I think that's definitely what they're leading to, a live action world between worlds, which is utterly insane. For anyone who doesn't know what that is, if you're checking this out and you don't know Rebels, it's time travel in Star Wars. And believe me, I know that sounds so dumb when I say it like that, but somehow in Star Wars Rebels, it was like, you know what? Sure, time travel in Star Wars, it worked. And like, as crazy as that sounds, they barely did anything with it, I'll be honest. And I think that was the point, to not do like the craziest stuff ever, but it just led to an amazing sequence. Like some of the best stuff ever in Star Wars, personal opinion of course, is in Star Wars Rebels. Like I will never forget the first time I saw that season 2 finale. Like that is one of the greatest moments in all of Star Wars ever. So I absolutely love that. There's some other stuff that happens later that I can't say I did, you know, I did a reaction to that, but I can't talk about that one. But the Star Wars season 2 finale, all of season 2, and just all the whole show, like it's so good. So definitely watch it. You will see some amazing stuff. I feel like that's all I can say. I'll just say, I don't even want to say it, because you should just experience it yourself. Like if you don't know, the surprise of what happens at the beginning of season 2 is one of the greatest things in all of Star Wars Rebels. Like obviously even with trailers we knew what was happening, but it was still like, they can do that? It's crazy. Like season 2 is ridiculous. So they do some stuff in Star Wars Rebels that's some of my favorite stuff that they've ever done. Actually, now that I think about it, I actually did do a reaction to that season 2 finale, and Kanan himself, Freddie Prinze Jr., actually liked that tweet. I thought that was funny. He actually retweeted my reaction. I just thought about that. I forgot about that. But check that out. I'll make that one of the title cards or whatever. But man, as a Rebels fan, super biased, but I loved it. You know, like, it was just seeing all the characters in live action, having the advancement of the story is without a doubt the most interesting thing about the whole series, as far as I'm concerned, because I was like, it was in the trailer, it's like, okay, we saw hints and stuff, and that, you know, I saw some of the early trailers. I avoided as many theories as possible, but you got to watch some trailers. And Sabine, when I saw her with a lightsaber, was like, holy crap, she's still using a lightsaber from, you know, kind of like how she did a little bit in Star Wars Rebels, at least. And I was like, this is so cool. And they explained in the episode that it is Ezra's lightsaber from the end, but it is definitely different. I think the actual emitter piece is different than what he had. It's been so long, obviously, since I watched Rebels, but I don't remember his having like the long emitter piece at the ending. But I thought it was like, all right, this is super cool. It's technically his lightsaber, it's not her own, but she made some modifications, and they even referenced that with the droid. And I wish I put his name, I put all the other characters' names down. I forgot the droid's name. Love that droid. He's the second old droid that we've seen recently, because in Jedi Survivor, there's another old droid. She's even older, but he's an old droid where it's like, you know, like, I've helped kids throughout the centuries, and I was like, oh, he's like super old, and he's been with the Jedi Order for a very long time. I love that idea. I like the role that he plays, where he's like, he has the knowledge of centuries worth of Jedi, but he's now with someone who left the Jedi Order behind. And so like the couple of things that they have to like kind of bounce off of each other, I thought that was really cool. And of course the role he plays later on, where like Hera for Ahsoka was like, hey, you know, like, I want, like, she just flat out asked her, was like, hey, maybe you should just take her on as an apprentice again. And they have a great moment where it's like, you know, you don't really know, or you do know if someone else is ready, and so do they. And it's like, oh, I kind of shut it down. It was like, you know, she's the one who wasn't ready. Like, I wanted her to be that, but you know, it just didn't work out. So I love that history that they have, where she went through that training, and she did some decent training too. Like, obviously she's a Mandalorian as well, but I'm not gonna lie, she held out like 3 times longer than I thought she would during that fight with Shin. And I was honestly like, I don't expect her to win, but I was super happy. I was like, okay, she trained, because she was fighting, and obviously she did some training even in Rebels where she had a sword fight, but that was like another Mandalorian, so I was like, it's more even keel. But at the same time, Mandalorians have always been the ones that could challenge Jedi, and considering they're both apprentices, it definitely fits. It was like, okay, I'm curious like what the balance is. And of course, Shin is a bit stronger. Like, ultimately she does win that fight, and she would have killed her, which was to be expected. Although I didn't think she'd get stabbed, and I've been seeing all the memes already on Twitter where everybody's just posting Qui-Gon like, how did she get stabbed and he dies? He really did get stabbed like right through the center. Like, he shouldn't have even been standing. His spine was like, bloop, it's gone. Like, he should have dropped it instantaneously. But it's Star Wars. Like, people get stabbed and people don't. Like, Darth Maul got cut in half and he came back. And you know what? Favorite character. I don't care. Like it happens. He was real mad and he lived. Like, that's Star Wars. It just happens, people. They get stabbed. It doesn't matter. It does matter. Arms come off. People get split in half. You either live or you don't. That's just Star Wars. But I was fine with it. I was like, okay. I didn't expect her to get stabbed. I figured she'd lose. But that was like, oh, and she got stabbed. Like, for real, it went straight through her. But I thought that was super cool. I actually really enjoyed that fight sequence. Ahsoka fighting in the beginning, I'm not even reading any of these notes, but Ahsoka fighting in the very beginning was super cool, fighting against the droids. I love the fact that they did the self-destruct, and I was like, okay. And in my head, I guess I was jumping ahead, and I was like, well, like, if she's running from it, it would have to be like a pretty crazy explosion. Like, they're taking a long time to charge up. And I figured it would be a big explosion. And then when she hops on the ship and it keeps going, and it's like just a wave of flames, it's just scorched earth. Like, everything is just like pitch black. It just burns. It completely incinerates everything in like a mile or 2 mile wide radius. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's worth it, because she took off running, and I'm like, oh, they're gonna blow up. And then I was like, they are charging for a long time. This must be a big explosion. And it was way crazier than I thought. Like, she would have of course died. Like, if the ship wasn't there, she would have been toast, unless she did like a crazy super Jedi jump, which technically she probably could have. She did like a mini one when she jumped out of the thing, which is super cool. She did like a full puzzle. They have a lot of long shots where like it was her doing the puzzle and then Sabine like just doing the ball, which that scene I felt took longer. I don't know, you know, also being high, I was like, this feels like it's taking an eternity, but it just felt like it was taking a long time for that one. But when it was the opening shot where it was quiet and she's doing a puzzle, I was like, oh, this I like. I think it's actually pretty cool. But to get through some of the notes, did the red logo, opening vertical crawl, the samurai style, it was all throughout. It's the text, the music, like all of that, absolutely amazing. Obviously they shot in the second episode where Sabine cuts her hair, which is also a reference to, once again, Rebels, where Kanan cuts his hair off. At some point in the series he does that, but similar shot. They also do a shot at the very end before Ahsoka ends up picking her up that is an exact recreation, like her walking up to the mural is a recreation of the season 4 epilogue sequence. It's not the same scene, but like she does the exact same thing. So I was like, oh, you know, that's cool. I didn't notice that until I saw someone put that on Twitter, but I was like, oh, that, you know, that's a pretty neat connection that I missed. But tons of cool stuff. I put the Night Sister thing. There was a lot of stuff where I was like, Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor, like there were so many things, and I was just like, she's a Night Sister, and for half a second I was like, man, I swear if somebody says the word Zepho, I'm gonna lose my mind. But it got me thinking, like, what if this is the show? I doubt it. We always doubt it. It's always like it would be a huge time skip from the Jedi like era of the games, because that's even before the original trilogy, so he'd have to be much older. But it was like, what if Cal Kestis did show up and it was in Ahsoka? Just saying, like, there are a lot of moments where I was just like, what if it happened in here? Like, we kept being like, what if it was Mandalorian? What if it was Boba Fett? What if it was here? What if in Ahsoka we get the live action version of Cal Kestis? Once again, he'd have to be way older, so I almost feel like they have to make something new in order for us to get that. And I just don't really see that happening unless they surprise us in the Lando show when that comes out, and that's where Cal Kestis eventually shows up. I wouldn't hate it. As long as we get them live action at some point, I'll be happy with that. But there were a lot of moments where I was like, this could be the one. There's a lot of Jedi Survivor, Jedi Fallen Order stuff I was noticing, like, okay, a lot of Night Sisters, you know, just saying. But I thought that was super cool. Oh man, so this is just a production design thing. I literally just put table from the ground and puzzle in the ground. In the opening sequence, when Ahsoka has to do that puzzle, she actually moves something and like the pillars come out of the ground and stuff, and then when she finishes them, they all go in the ground and like the centerpiece comes up and they have like this weird, it made me think of like those old as seen on TV things where it's like the kinetic sand was like you put it in the water and it stays together, but you pull it out and it falls through your fingers. I don't know why, but I thought kinetic sand. But I was like, they had to build this whole set just for this scene. It was an amazing sequence. It's the opening. They did a lot of shots there, but I was like, this is just here. And then they just have to tear it all down. And all these motors and everything, like these pillars go down, the centerpiece comes up. They have like the ball encased inside whatever that, you know, like the, basically look like compact sand. And then on Ahsoka's ship, when she's talking with Sabine, she hits a button, and then they do a whole sequence where the table is coming out of the ground and the thing is like dipping down, like so the lights are centering on the table. And I was like, that's amazing. Like that actually just came out of the ground, and they held the shot just long enough for it to be absolutely amazing, where they're walking around it and then Sabine touches it, she sits down and just puts her foot on the like the little railing, and I was like, holy crap, that just happened. Like, that was an actual thing. It wasn't CG, it wasn't like a fake chair or anything like that. It actually just came out of the ground, unless it was CG and it just looked that good because it was just a table. At some point they actually had it, but I don't think that was CG, because that would be a lot of CG work just to like fake her sitting down on a chair or something like that. But the tables could be fake, well, you never know, at least from that very set sequence. But I would assume all of that was 100% real, and it was actually just a moving thing. If that was CG, it was amazing. It definitely looked real, but either way, I was like, I'm fairly certain that was a real sequence. So I love that, just because I was like, wow, they actually built that. It came out of the ground as they're talking, and it was just a normal part of it, and they're walking around it, and then Sabine touches it, she sits down, and then she's at the table, and I was like, that just looks super cool. It was like a whole thing that it was just the floor. It literally was just a cool design on the floor, and she hit a button, and the whole thing was 4 booths and a table, and it actually came out of the ground. And it was just like, I can't, like, there's nothing to say. That was just amazing production design, unless it was amazing CG work, but I assume it was production. So that was just something that I had to mention, because I put that in there and I was like, they built a lot, and it just looked great. So I appreciated that 100%. Really good conversation between Ahsoka and Hera, where they talk about making the choices and doing the whole Padawan thing, and it's like, oh, I bet you were an issue for your master. And I love how they handled that sequence, where it goes to obviously the dark emotions of Anakin Skywalker becoming Darth Vader. But I love how and that's another thing for people that didn't watch Rebels, it's like, oh, okay, this is something we didn't know about Ahsoka. Before the Clone Wars, which a lot of people are probably familiar with, that's where Ahsoka leaves. And it's like, he never, my master never got to finish my training, because I left him and the Jedi Order, and I never came back. Things got a little crazy, and so I never got to go back. And it was like, okay, that was a cool way to do that. But then, and maybe this is just because, once again, I watched Clone Wars and stuff like that, I think her saying stuff where it was like, what if you make the right choices but the outcome is still really horrible? And I was like, oh, that's interesting, because for me, in my head, I went to Clone Wars, where she just refused to believe anything Darth Maul was saying, even though he was telling the truth, where it was like, we have to stop and kill Anakin. I know he's your master, but we got to kill him so the Emperor can't take over, and then everybody's screwed. And she's like, it's Anakin, it won't happen. And the right choice was like, at that point was like, well, the smart decision was choosing her family. It's like, it's Anakin Skywalker, he would never do that. That's her big brother. This was the show that honestly made me realize that, which is so dumb, because Obi-Wan literally says it, and it's like, well, if Anakin is his brother, and obviously Ahsoka is their little sister. That never dawned on me literally until this episode, because I was like, well, they were still so young that it couldn't even get to a point where he was so far ahead of her as a master, where it was like, oh, like it's like more of a father figure. It's like, that's just her big brother. And then he turned into like the worst dude in the galaxy, maybe second worst. And it's like, man, I never really thought of it that way. And she made that choice, and the outcome it was bad. Like, what could you do? It was Anakin Skywalker. You would never think that. Obi-Wan didn't think it until it was a little too late. That's just how it is. They chose family, and that was the right decision, sort of. But I just thought that was interesting, because there's so much between those characters. And heck, even going off of Rebels, what she experiences in that show involving Anakin and Darth Vader. So it was like, there's a lot there. There's so many moments you could technically pick from for that, but I thought that was a great conversation. Obviously, Sabine gets stabbed. Talked about that. The action was good. Also, the evil apprentice Shin, she actually has the Padawan braid. I love that. It's like, what's the deal with this weird sect that they have? Because we got the dude at the top, Ray Stevenson, who unfortunately passed away before the show actually began. It really sucks that he passed away in general, but it's like, man, he already seems like a cool character. I think everyone was already excited. I always liked him. I love the Punisher movie that he was in personally. I think that's like the best Punisher movie. There's only like 2 or 3, but I think that's the best Punisher movie, at least Punisher Warzone. So I always liked him just from that, but I always thought he was a cool actor. So I think he's good in this, and I'm excited to see what they do with his character. If I had to guess anything in this, just in general, I'm like, I think they'll probably have his character at some point lose to Ahsoka, and so he'll die. And I think they're probably going to kill, I think the character's name is Maruk, who's like almost in like the full-on knight armor, who the former Inquisitor, obviously based on having the lightsaber, but now is like kind of the third in that rank, or I guess technically would be the second in that rank. So I think both of them are going to be gone, and then Shin will be the one to eventually upgrade to more official, whatever they are. They're not Sith, but they're definitely not Jedi anymore. So whatever they want to classify themselves as, I'll be in the same position, just on the darker side of things, from Ahsoka. The interesting story for both those characters now. So I like that connection. I think they'll do that, but I think they're going to take both of them out, and then she'll be the only one left by the end of the series, and maybe she'll team up with Morgan if Morgan doesn't get killed either, because I'm still curious how, like, some of these characters got to go. Like, there's 5 villains, including Thrawn when he eventually comes in, so I'm like, they got like 3 lightsaber people, they got a Night Sister, they got the Grand Admiral. I'm like, that's 5 people, and one dude doesn't even have a face. So like, we kind of know where some things are headed. That's, obviously I could be totally wrong with that. He might survive. He did throw the lightsaber, and I was very happy about that. He doesn't fly with it. I don't think we'll ever see it. I don't know if they'll officially do it live action. I just don't know. But he threw it, and that was pretty cool. And I'm just like, maybe they'll just do like a little boost. They did that in something, and I can't think of what it was. Maybe it was another animated thing that they just came out with. I don't know. But I think it was in the Jedi games. I think they did that for like half a second, where it was like just a little boost to kind of help them up. Maybe they'll pull that one, but I don't think they're going to be like full on flying. I don't think we're going to see that live action. It would be nice though. I'm not gonna lie, I would lose it, but I think it would just like push it like just a little too far. People barely appreciate it in animated form, so we'll see what happens with that. But he did throw the lightsaber, and he called it back, and that was a cool shot where Ahsoka was just like this and just dodged it, like, oh, whatever. It's like, I'll get y'all later. So love that sequence as well, even though I'm jumping all over. But man, everything was so good. Obviously, Night Sister stuff, Green Flame, Love Cat, obviously amazing. No Kanan reference. So we saw no Kanan and no Jace. So that is slight spoilers. That's Kanan's son. So no reference to either of them. You see Kanan obviously in the mural, but that's about it. It's, same with Zeb. We don't hear his name, but he's not dead. So there's a difference there, but no actual reference to Kanan. 100% that will happen naturally, because there's no way they can do the show and not reference Kanan in any way, shape, or form, especially if Ezra does end up showing up before like the very last episode. I think he'll at least be in like maybe 3 episodes. I'm kind of hoping. I feel like they'll find him, and it'll be like maybe the last 3 or something like that, or maybe they'll find Thrawn, but they don't find Ezra, and we still have to wait. But they do have the guy actually cast for him, and he looks just like Ezra. It's crazy. I looked it up today because I didn't want to really see what he looked like, because all I saw was the hologram. I looked him up after the show, and I was like, oh yeah, that is Ezra Bridger, 100%. So good casting on that. Let's see, the Master Apprentice stuff, super cool. Like I said, the weird Jedi sect that they got going on, or evil Jedi, not Jedi, whatever. I think it's super cool because there is a Master and Apprentice thing going on, so I love that. See, for epilogue, blah blah blah. Jedi games, Fulcrum. They reference Fulcrum. That's always a cool reference as well. Character. Oh, the speeder scene. I thought that was really funny. That's the shot from the trailer, of course, with her on the speeder bike. And I love the shot after she does the slide underneath, and the dude looks at her, and he just gives her like the nod, like, that was pretty cool. And then he leaves. Like, that's all he could do is be like, well, that was badass. I guess you can go home. And I just thought that was really funny. He just gives it the nod, like, all right, respect where respect is due. We'll head on back. So I just thought that was really funny. That was definitely worth noting. Already talked about the world between worlds. So those are the first 2 episodes. I know I jumped all over the place. I absolutely loved it. Like I said from the beginning, pretty biased, love Rebels, so of course I'm much more familiar with the characters. I appreciate seeing them in live action because it's so different. Like, seeing Ahsoka for the first time was like, holy crap, it's Ahsoka. And then seeing everyone from the Ghost crew is like, well, most of the characters at least. Well, actually, technically at this point we have seen everyone live action. Zeb wasn't in this, but he was already in the show. And then Hera and Chopper were kind of the big team focus from Rebels once episode 2 came around, and we got to see them kind of go out and do that mission. And they had a lot of great points, and of course it turns out the guy was bad at the end anyway. But I did think it was funny where it was like, so you guys didn't like fire all those bad guys? I was like, oh well, we'd have to stop production, we couldn't do that. And so it seemed like he's just the dude where it's like, hey, I get money from the people on top. And then it turned out, I was like, no, he's still actually being paid by the soon to be First Order, I guess, trying to be Empire again. But I was like, okay, so they arrested those people, and they end up losing the hyperdrive that they had. But I thought that was cool, and I feel like that was on purpose. The shot that they have where they're building this giant gate, and I was like, because I would assume it doesn't have to look that way, but it looked just like those things from the prequel series where the ships would go into them and that would shoot them in the hyperdrive. And I was like, that's interesting, because I don't think, it could have designed it to look like literally anything. It could have just been a straight ring. It could have looked like the Halo ring, for all you wanted to make it. And I was like, I feel like they did that on purpose, because we don't see those very often outside of the prequels where they put the ships in and then, it shoots them off. And it was like, that's interesting that they made it look just like that, just a huge version of it just in space. So I mean, the others were obviously in space too, but just a really big version of it. But I thought that was super cool because I was like, I don't, it didn't have to look that. It could have looked however they wanted. It's a circle. It could, like I said, it could have been a flat circle, but it looked just like those things. And I was like, that's pretty cool. And they're on the very last one as well, which is like insanely fast. And I was like, I feel like I was in the middle of Empire Strikes Back. Like, poof, it's been 6 months. Like, how long? Like, they just got to that planet, and then they were already building the whole thing. And it was like, we're on the last one now. So, I guess they were already building that because they technically knew where the planet was to put the ball. So maybe I guess they were building it the whole time. So that makes sense. I was just dumb at the time, but I love what they did with all of that. Where it's like, all right, this is where we are. That is where we're going, and we're gonna build this thing. I assume we got like maybe mid-season finale, they'll have it officially done, and that's when Thrawn comes in. But he might come in even sooner. Like, I don't remember how many episodes this is going to be, but I'm definitely looking forward to it. Like, the whole show, like, I'm excited. Like, I thought it was fantastic. I love all the action. I actually liked Sabine's fight more than Ahsoka's fight. I think the first fight was fairly cool. It was super quick. She was, chopping them up, and I love when she dropped down and was like cutting the holes in the ground to drop them. So that was super cool. But her fight in the second episode, I actually didn't think was as entertaining as Sabine's fight, and maybe it's because she's a bit more skilled, and it was a much slower paced fight where she's going against two people at once. It wasn't just two people like just clashing against each other. But I just liked that fight a little bit more. It was more visceral, especially with the way they handled it, and it was also just like, okay, how are they going to do the stories? Like, of course she's not gonna die, it's Sabine, but they still shocked me. I thought she would just lose, but getting straight up stabbed through the stomach, I was like, oh, okay, I didn't see that coming. So she got a scar to remember her new nemesis by, and they'll have a couple of their battle, classic video game stuff. You lose the first time, it's a draw the second time, you win the final time, and the hero comes out on top. They learn their lesson, they've done their training, and that's how it will end. She probably won't kill her by the very end, but at least beat her, unless they do just straight up kill off all the villains, which would be very interesting. But I definitely love that fight. I'm excited to see more. I think Sabine's fights are gonna be my favorite fights because, for one, they're gonna be cool lightsaber fights, and two, it's gonna be so much more impactful story-wise. Ahsoka is gonna come out on top. She's Ahsoka. I've seen her do some wild stuff. She's just gonna be like, I win, and that's Ahsoka. It's like, sure, technically, yes, Sabine will win, but she's already been stabbed, and people get their hands chopped off all the time. They could do anything where they chop a leg off, an arm off. They got cybernetics. They could do cool cybernetics and not like the Boba Fett stuff. They could do cool cybernetics. They could chop something off. I hope they don't. I hope she's perfectly fine. Just maybe some cuts and some, maybe she can get stabbed again. I don't know. But I'm very excited to see where her character lands by the end of this season. I'm super curious if they're gonna go with she taps into the Force, because she will be the first Force-sensitive Jedi or Force-sensitive Mandalorian in quite a while. I mean, technically speaking, Grogu did already do that, so I guess you'd be like the second person to do it, or the third person, in all, kind of going all the way back. But it'll be interesting. I'm very curious because I'm like, a lot of people who don't watch Rebels, they don't know, like, she's done basically the same stuff that we've seen in the Mandalorians. Like, you want a character that's held the Darksaber? Well, look at her. You want to see a character that's fought with the Darksaber to save Mandalore? Well, there she is right there. So like, she's a part of the story, which a lot of people probably know her just from the Mandalorian season 2 finale, where everybody was like, the last time the Darksaber got handed off, this is what happened, and they should have referenced that and said, like, that's why all that stuff went down, where it was like, well, she can't take it from you, she has to fight you for it, all that. A lot of people brought up Rebels because of that sequence, where it was like, hey, that's what happened the last time the Darksaber was passed off. It was just kind of given away, and Sabine was the one to do that. So very curious where they're headed with her character. She's already using the lightsaber, and she can actually fight, and it's just super cool because I'm like, it's my favorite. Mandalorians are my favorite thing, and then the Mandalorian with lightsaber is just super cool. That's why she's one of my favorite characters, because she has those moments already, and then we can see that in live action. It'll be even cooler. She didn't have her jetpack. That was something I definitely noticed, because she has a jetpack. I don't remember her losing it at the end of Star Wars Rebels, and also it's been like a decade since then, so it's like she should definitely have a jetpack by this point. So I think they'll save that for a little bit later, and she'll get a new jetpack. But I was like, that's weird, because she definitely she had that throughout like the whole series. That was a part of her thing. She always had a jetpack. It wasn't like the Mandalorian where they had to kind of upgrade to that later. She had that from like the first episode when you meet her. Like, she has all that, the whole setup. So I'm curious how that's going to play out. We also don't see her when she's in her costume, I don't think they show her with her pistols either, with, you know, her blasters, of course. But she was another dual wielding character, which a lot of the Mandalorians are, I guess. But she was definitely like, I guess really she would be like the second person to really do it. So I am hoping that we get to see that, but I don't recall her having like her blaster like at all. Even when she like fully got dressed up, was like, hey, I'm ready to go. I don't think she had them on her hip. I think she just had her lightsaber, which I don't mind, but you know, it'll be cool to see her kind of utilize both at some point, because that's just a part of, you know, Mandalorian ways. They use like a million different types of weapons, and seeing her do that would just be really cool. So looking forward to the whole series. You know, I already been talking for 30 minutes, so I don't think there's much else I have to say. Obviously, I absolutely love these first 2 episodes. It looked like Star Wars. It felt like Star Wars. It had Rebels characters in it. Chopper was definitely cool. I do feel like they made it much more obvious, the stuff that he was saying, where you could clearly tell. It was like, oh, these are the words that he said. You can clearly tell that. And I was kind of half and half on that. When they first did it, where he was mocking Hera, I laughed at that. And then it was stuff where it was like, did you look through my stuff? And she was like, I didn't look through your stuff. And you could clearly tell, it was like, yes, you did. And it was like, okay. I feel like it was just a little too expressive, because typically Chopper is just a bunch of rambling noises. You don't know what he's saying at all, because it's just droid language, but you know he's saying some bad stuff. And it kind of started off like that, and then it felt like it got a bit too descriptive, where it's like I said, you could clearly tell he was saying, yes, you did, because it was just like, it sounded like 3 straight syllables, like, yes, you did. So I was like, I'm kind of halfway on that, because I'm so used to his responses just being natural noises, and you just make up whatever you want. But it was very specific, and I was like, I don't know why that bothered me. Like it just felt weird being like, oh, it's like that fake droid speak where he's talking. And when he mocked her, it made the most sense. But then it was like he made up his own words. It was like, he said, yes, you did. And it just felt a little weird. It's normally just classic droid speak, and him just hitting stuff, which was definitely good. He was hitting things and like being angry and expressive. I was like, yeah, I like that. I want to see him hit somebody. Like, I know that's crazy to say, but if you don't know Chopper, like, the only way you can top Chopper is it, once again, going back to the Jedi games, if BD1 shows up live action, I'll die. Like, that's all I need. BD1, he's my favorite droid, 100% in all of Star Wars. BD1 is my favorite. But Chopper's probably number 2. Love me some Chopper. So I'm excited to see more Chopper, excited to see more of everyone from the Ghost crew, excited for whatever episode we eventually get Zeb, because he has to make another appearance, so that'll be sweet. Maybe they'll do a straight up episode where it's like they get the whole crew together, and maybe even CJ's. Who knows what happens? But would love to know your thoughts on the first 2 episodes of Ahsoka. What you guys think about some of the revelations, you know, the Night Sister stuff. What are your theories as far as like what's going on with our villains and like the weird Jedi sect that they have? Why does a Night Sister trust Thrawn, considering everything that the Empire did? I didn't even talk about that. Like, the Empire took out the Night Sister, so you know, why does she want to work with him? Like, I think that's interesting. Like, at this point, especially if they go the route of what his character typically is, where it's like, oh, you know, like, he's not really accepted by the Empire. Like, that's how important he is that there are not like other species in the Empire. Like, that's so insanely rare. So, you know, maybe that's a part of why she kind of has that bond with him, where it's like, I know that he can do this, and he faces the prejudices in a sense from the Empire that I faced and my people, my ancestors faced. So I am curious where their relationship is at, like what she could want, you know, power wise. So I'm excited to see where everything goes, but would love to know your thoughts on the first 2 episodes of Ahsoka, where it's headed, what you guys think, what you like, what you don't like, all that good stuff. So please put your comments down in the comment section below, and of course, thanks for watching.
You hungry? I'm hungry. I'm hungry. I'm hungry. You hungry? Yeah, I'm hungry. Like I'm hungry. I'm hungry. Like I'm Shaggy. Man, I'm hungry. Man, I'm hungry. I'm hungry. Yeah, man. You hungry? Yeah, I'm hungry.